Hey everybody, welcome to How to Be Mesmerizing. It's Tim Shurr, and today we have a very special guest with us. Kute Blackson is with us, the author of The Magic of Surrender. Kute, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so the pleasure is mine. So tell me a little bit about your book, The Magic of Surrender, and the message that you have for everybody that's listening today.
Wow, the magic of surrender, is about the magic of surrender and what happens when you really surrender. I think it's something I'm really passionate about because I really believe that true surrender is the most powerful thing that we can do. To me, it's the password to freedom. It's the key to greatness. If you look at the truly great ones, whether it's Jesus, whether it's Buddha, whether it's Gandhi, whether it's Mandela, whether it's Martin Luther King, whether it's Mother Teresa, whether it's Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, Bob Marley, they all at some point they surrendered themselves to a vision. They surrendered themselves to their soul. They surrendered themselves to life. And in that surrender, they transcended their own human limitations and they tapped into another dimension of true potential, and life was able to use them and manifest through them in ways that they couldn't have even imagined. And so I think in our culture today, we have this idea of surrender as like there's so many misconceptions that surrender is weak, that surrender is passive, that surrender means waving the white flag and giving up, and that if you surrender, you're going to get taken advantage of. You're going to be a doormat. You won't manifest your goals, dreams, and desires. That if you surrender, you're going to get less. And I want to reframe surrender and really make it something exciting for people to live and practice, so that they can fulfill their true soul's destiny, their true authentic destiny. And so what I'm really saying is, if you truly surrender yourself, what if you didn't get less, but you got more than you could have planned for yourself, more than you could imagine with your mind? What if you got beyond? To me, the magic of surrender, magic is not a hocus pocus, David Copperfield kind of magic. Magic is that which is beyond our mental capacity to imagine what's possible, beyond our own human imagination. And so when I ask anyone, do you want more magic? Everyone says yes, but the truth is very few of us want to truly surrender. And so surrender, there is no magic without surrender. To me, this is the password. This is the formula for life. And so when we surrender is really a letting go of control, or the illusion that we are in control. And I think control is the master addiction. And I think if the last few years showed us anything, it may have shown us that maybe as human beings, we aren't in as much control as we thought that we were. And so it's a letting go of control. Surrender is letting go of constantly trying to force and manipulate life to fit into your limited idea of how you think it should be. Surrender is the willingness to let go of who you think you should be and the idea of how you think your life should be, so that you can be truly open and available and allow the authentic life that is seeking to unfold, that is seeking to happen, that is seeking to express through you. And so it is to take the limits off of life. And I think as human beings, we often set a goal, we get attached to what we think our life should be and what we think we should achieve. And we get so attached to it that in that attachment, we often don't realize that we are limiting life. And so when we take the limits off of life, I think that's when we get to experience and we open ourselves to the infinite possibilities of life. And that's when magic happens. So the magic of surrender is an invitation to live in that way, an invitation to live, shall we say, infinitely, with full availability.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of saying it. So I imagine that we're in a river, and the flow of the river is trying to take us to a certain destination.
Yes.
Because of the experiences that we've had in life, we feel like it's not going to take us to the destination that we want. And so we start swimming upstream, and we're fighting the current.
Exactly.
And we're so afraid that if we let go, if we surrender, that it's going to take us to a place of hurt. It's going to take us to a place of shame. It's going to take us to a place where we feel like we're not good enough.
Yes.
It's going to take us to what everybody said, that who do you think you are, and you're not going to matter, and you're not going to end up being anything, and we're afraid that they're going to end up being proved right. And so surrender is about, overcoming our fear that we're
Yeah.
not enough, and embracing the true belief that we are.
Mm.
So when you let go, that's what you're saying, right? That when you let go, you're going with the stream. That
Yes.
you're trusting that God, the universe, that we can co-create our experience and know that things are always going to work out for us in the end.
Mm.
And the more you try to control things, the more stress you create, and the more it ends up going the way you don't want it to. And often it's because of what we're doing, not
Yeah.
because of what bad things are happening to us. It's because of our level of fear. That's what screws us up and gets in the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So how you seem like a pretty young guy. So how'd you figure that out?
Wow. Um, I would say through a set of different experiences, and also through uh, the process of trying to constantly impose my will on life, and through failing, and through things not working out, and through things, to be honest, not going according to plan. I
Mhm.
remember you know, in my very early 20s, I had this idea that I was going to be the next Oprah. And I wanted this TV. I was hell bent on getting this TV show. I was so attached to it. I gave up everything, and I pursued this show. I was obsessed with it. I slept it. I dreamt it. I ate it. I would track down producers and knock on their doors. I mean, found Steven Spielberg and Hollywood agents, and I was so attached to this idea of the show, and that being my identity, and that being the way that I was going to share my gifts and purpose with the world, that I couldn't see anything else. And it just created so much suffering because I experienced so much rejection, and I was so wrapped up with that being the only way, until I realized, until I got so much rejection. Actually, one day I was actually offered a show, and these big time Hollywood managers said, "We're going to give you a show. We think you're amazing. We think this is incredible." And I went home that night, and I meditated on this decision. Everything I had spent the last years trying to pursue and sacrifice so much to do, and they gave me this contract. And when I really meditated on it, when I really tuned into this decision that I was about to make, everything in my being said no. Everything in my being said this wasn't the way. Everything in my being said this wasn't right.
Mhm.
And I always had this knowing that whenever I don't follow this knowing,
Mhm.
it, things never end up
That's right.
going in a great direction. And so I just think I remember I had enough, maybe sensibility to feel like, okay, I need to follow this knowing. But I remember being so frustrated, and so into my ego was so upset that I couldn't do what I wanted to do, or what I
Mhm.
thought I wanted to do. And I told them, I'm not going to be signing with you, and I'm going to turn the opportunity down. They thought I was crazy.
Mhm.
And that threw me into a depression, and that threw me into a real conflict and turmoil. And that is what took me out of the US again. And I came from London to the US. That took me out of the US, traveling the world in search of answers, and went to Thailand, and went to South America, ended up in India, and had certain experiences in India where my heart cracked open,
Mhm.
and I was forced to just let go. And in that letting go is when I came back. And I look back and I think now, I'm so glad that what I thought I wanted to happen didn't happen. Because when I look back from a different perspective, a different intelligence, I'm able to see that maybe on some level I wasn't ready for it at 21, 22 years old. And sometimes it really taught me that not getting what you thought you wanted is sometimes grace, is sometimes blessing from the universe, even though we're not able to see it in a particular moment. And I wasn't able to see it in that particular moment. And so that took me down a very deep road of healing and therapy and transformation and internal self-development and self-work, which then led to the work I'm doing now, which is coaching people, uncoaching people, transforming, speaking, teaching, writing. And I know, I mean, I can never be sure, but I really feel that had I gotten what I thought I wanted, I probably would not have gone so deep down the path of healing and transformation and self-reflection. And so now I realize it was a profound blessing. But when I look back too, I see how in many ways, my entire childhood prepared me in terms of surrender. The way my parents met, that's a whole nother story. We can talk about that. But the way my parents met, my mother's Japanese, my father's from Ghana. They couldn't speak when they met. Literally, they couldn't speak the same language. They agreed to get married sight unseen. A story of surrender. My father had 300 churches. He had hundreds of thousands of followers in his church, devotees, so to speak, congregants. And I grew up seeing blind people see and deaf people hear and people stand up out of wheelchairs. My father was considered this miracle man. And I grew up seeing these miracles just like everyday, normality. And I was supposed to take over my father's church when I was age 14. I started speaking when I was age 8. 14, I was ordained as a minister. I knew this wasn't right. I was too afraid to speak my truth. My fear was if I speak my truth to my father, that I'm going to be outcast. If I speak my truth to my father, I'm going to be left behind. I'll lose the relationship. I'll lose his love. And it took me about 4 years to muster up the courage to surrender, to really acknowledge what was in my heart, to really surrender to the truth that I felt a different calling. I felt a different path. I looked into my future. And I think this was one of the first conscious moments of real surrender for me, because I looked into my path, into my future, and I realized I was trying to be what everyone wanted me to be. My life was carved out. I was trying to fit myself into this version of myself that my father wanted and society wanted and everyone else wanted, and I wasn't happy. And I looked into my future and I saw that I could be successful by everyone else's standards. But if I didn't have myself, if I didn't have my soul, if I didn't have my integrity, like, what kind of success is that? If I start lying now about who I am and I create a life based on that lie, I'm going to have to lie my entire life in order to get the love that I'm trying to get by living the lie. And
a lot of people do. That's a lot of people do that.
Yeah, I felt such a pain and the sense of committing soul suicide. And that's when I knew that I had to surrender and I had to let go and I had to risk and I had to follow my truth. And that truth for me, I felt this calling to come to America as a young man. I wanted to come to America because I started reading self-help books from my father's bookshelf from a very young age. And all of the authors I read about lived in Southern California. Louise Hayes and Marianne Williamsons of the world and Deepak Chopra's. And so I wanted to come and meet them and study with them. And so I felt this profound, undeniable calling in my soul that was pulling me go to America, come to Los Angeles. And so,
which again is a real leap of faith.
It's a leap of faith.
Why do you want to be the next Oprah?
Why? At the time, there was a deep desire I think, to be honest, if I'm honest, I think there were a couple of levels to it. On one level, there was a true deep desire to inspire people. There was a true deep desire to use some of my gifts and talents to inspire, to get people to question their reality, to get people to question life, and to do it in a mainstream way. So there was that genuine desire. But the level of attachment to having a TV show, I realized was, and I'm not saying I won't, but I realized that the level of attachment and pain I experienced from that attachment was perhaps driven by some of my own, at that time, feeling not worthy. And that if I could do the show and be famous and get everyone's love, then I will finally show my father, that I'm enough. Then I will finally be validated. I will finally be loved. And I think there was some of that, if I'm honest, unconscious, but ego drive to prove myself to the world, to prove myself to my father, to prove myself to people. And sometimes the ego can only take you so far. And I think I reached my ego's capacity to control my life, and that's when things just cracked open.
Yeah. Wayne Dyer used to say the ego stands for edging God out.
Nice.
And we try to become God and we're just not qualified for the position. Yeah. So I'm super proud of you for being so honest and being so open and vulnerable, and demonstrating that surrender is a strength. You did a beautiful job of that. And in my work, I help people understand how driven we are by these unconscious beliefs that we have,
For
you know,
sure.
and these desires to be loved, and how we end up chasing that love and chasing that approval and chasing that validation. And the more we chase it, the more it runs away. And you truly get it when you don't need it anymore. When you're giving yourself love and care and support and kindness and acceptance, then all of a sudden others will treat you that way as well. And so, but you do what we all have done. We start chasing that fame or that fortune. If I have enough money, or if I have enough followers, or I have enough whatever, then I'm going to get my dad's love, my mom's love, the approval of people. I'm going to feel appreciated. I'm going to feel like if you love me, then I can love me. If you think I'm enough, then I think I can enough. And I call it, when I'm working with achievers, and I know you see this too, I call it achiever syndrome, because so many people are trying to conquer the world, right? And they live on this edge of, I'm going to conquer the world, or I can't get out of bed.
Right.
And back and forth. And that anxiety doesn't come. We say that it comes from ambition and because we want to make a difference and we want to serve. And I believe that's true, but it comes more from that deep desire to prove that we're enough, to prove that we're good, to prove that we're not the loser that we think maybe we might be.
Right.
And so you did a really good job of sharing your story in a way where other people can go, wow, I've been doing that.
Yeah.
Because no matter how much you accomplish, it just never seems like it's enough.
It's never enough. No, yeah. It's never enough if you're coming from that wounded place. It's never enough when you're coming from not enough. Yeah. And nothing, what I found is nothing outside of myself truly fulfills that place inside, because it's not outside. What we're looking for is inside, yeah. And that's the freedom, that's the freedom.
Yeah, it is. So then you managed to take, I think The Magic of Surrender is your second book?
The Magic of Surrender is my second book. Not the book I expected to write, Tim. Not the book.
Yeah, I know. We don't write the books we think we're going to write. We write the books we need.
Yeah.
Right?
Tell me about it. Yeah.
And so, but again, super impressed with you. Great job, because writing a book is so hard. Writing two of them's amazing, right? Yeah. And I have a feeling that you have more inside of you as well. And so, so that's really wonderful. So The Magic of Surrender, and you've done such a great job of helping people to kind of look at it in a different way. It's not giving up our goals. It's not giving up. I wrote a chapter of my book on surrender as well, the One Belief Away book, and we're saying a lot of the same things, because when you start to uncover some truths, some universal truths, we find that we are saying the same thing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That and I always thought that when if I surrendered, I would be giving up my goals. I'd be like sacrificing my identity. This is who I think I am. And you're saying to just let go and let God and trust that everything's going to be okay. And this river of life's going to take me down. It hasn't taken me there so far. Why do I think it's going to all of a sudden take me there now? If I just let go, I don't have to try anymore. I don't have to go after my goals. And that freaked me out. Yeah. And, but no, that's not the case at all. That's all coming from fear and scarcity mindset. And you have a different approach, which comes from more of a prosperity and not fear, but faith.
Yeah. So it's just to me, it's a reframing of surrender, as we were talking about. A different invitation to live a whole different paradigm. I think part of the old paradigm too, and it still has its place. I call it more the ego method, the ego's way of manifesting in the world, which is all about. We're taught to say, well, what do I want? What do I want? Get clear on what you want. And I think clarity has a piece. I think clarity is important. It's beneficial. Get clear on what you want. And the challenge, though, is sometimes if we're not clear on the I that's wanting, if we're not clear on the very I that is wanting, many times our goals can become projections, as we were talking about earlier, projections of those unmet needs from childhood. I wasn't loved. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel validated. I was bullied. And if I can just get that Lamborghini, that $1 million, that body, that whatever, that fame, then I'm going to be enough. And so I think many times we sometimes do get what we thought we wanted, only to realize that what we thought we wanted was not what we really wanted. It was just what we thought we wanted based on who we thought we were. And so we can create from the level of the ego, from the level of ego identity, but often it ends up limited in some way. You can live a great life, a good life, but you can live a good life, but I think a truly great life. And that's for me part of the invitation. The kind of life, and not that we will all live that, because great is different for everybody. But for me, someone like Mandela has been a great inspiration for me, because I think he lived a great life. He was living in alignment with his soul, his dharma, his truth, and he surrendered. And that led him in an unexpected direction, 26 years in prison. And so sometimes surrender leads us where we don't expect, or often into the unknown. But we look at 26 years in prison, I sometimes think, should he have not spent 26 years in prison? Should he have not spent it? What if he didn't spend it? He probably would not have become the Nelson Mandela that we know. And
yeah, we wouldn't be talking about him right now if he spent 6 months.
6 months, 6 weeks, right? And if he forced and just did that. And I think it's perhaps that 26 years in prison that brought him to the awareness of the consciousness of the planet and humanity. It's the 26 years in prison that also ripened him, on a mental, emotional, human level, to develop the empathy, the vision, the forgiveness, the capacity, the soul, the energetic soul force, so that when he came out, he was able, through the energy of his being and his soul that was cultivated and cooked and marinated in prison, that he was able to then transmit that to people in a way that it moved humanity. Even when his physicality is gone, he's still moving us in so many ways. And so should he have not spent those 26 years in prison? To me, that kind of life is not a life that you could strategize or script or it be. To me, that's what happens when we surrender. We move beyond the script, and then we move into I call it like an infinite zone where anything is possible. And so to me, the question that I've been asking myself, that I invite people to ask, is not just, what do I want? Okay, nothing wrong with intention. Have intention, but I tell people, hold it lightly. Don't hold your intention with such attachment, because sometimes what we think is the goal is not really the goal. It's just the necessary puzzle piece that takes us in the trajectory of a journey. And I think every goal is evolutionary, that takes us on a journey so that we can face those parts of ourselves to heal, to transcend, to realize, to let go of, to make peace with, to evolve. And the evolutionary journey that goal takes us on, to me, is the goal, is more important than what we think is the goal. And so the question really becomes, in surrender, is just feeling, what is it that life, what is it that my soul is seeking to express through me? What is the deepest impulse of my being, of my integrity, of my essence? What is the deepest impulse that life is seeking to express through me? And to begin to attune ourselves to that energy, to that question, to that depth of our own inner knowing, and allow that, then I think we can start to align our thinking, our feeling, our thoughts, our actions, align that with what's real, with what's true, with what's authentic, And so The Magic of Surrender was not the book I thought I was going to write. I had all of these ideas of the book I thought would sell, of the book I thought would be bestsellers, the book I thought my audience would want to read, the book I thought publishers would buy. And I remember having an entire whiteboard of different titles and topics and ideas and themes. And Tim, it was like trying to force something to be something that it wasn't. I was trying to fit a book into my concept, my ego's concept, and nothing felt in my integrity. No, maybe I'll write a book on those one day, but none of those ideas really felt aligned, that I could look myself in the mirror and say, this is it. I can stand by that. Not for money, not for anything. That is the message my soul is meant to bring forth right now, regardless of the outcome. And the only thing that I saw of everything I wrote was the word surrender. That was it. And honestly, when I first saw that, and I knew, oh my God, that's the book.
Right.
I
Yeah.
resisted it. I resisted
Right.
it. I resisted. I'm like, I don't want to write about surrender because we're all kind of freaked out about surrender. But I
Yes.
knew, and then I reflected on my entire life. I reflected on the journey that my mother also inspired the book. I reflected on the unexpected journey I went with my mother, who passed away from stomach cancer, and how she taught me so much about surrender in the process. I'll just give you one quick story. When my mother was diagnosed with stomach cancer in 2017, I'm on a high after my first book, on tour. I was on Larry King, all these shows. Life has a way of humbling you, let me tell you that. And I felt like when I heard that my mother had stomach cancer, it was like someone just chopped my knees off. And I was on the ground, like, she's the person I love the most. And to take her away from me was, what else? What else? Like, God, what else do you want? And so I started flying back and forth every month from LA to London to be with her in chemo. What started off as the worst year of my life turned out to be the best year of my life, because when I finally began to just surrender and accept that she was going, it freed me up to be fully present with her in a way that I don't think I'd ever been. I was so busy running around the world trying to do things and impact the world and help the world and what have you, that I didn't make time for what was really important. I didn't make time for the small moments. I got to just sit with my mother in chemo and hold her hand for 8 hours and talk. I don't remember when I done that since I was a kid, and it was really profound. And the doctor said 6 months into the process, there's nothing else we can do, so get your affairs in order. And it's a hard moment. And I remember feeling the heartbreak and shock of that. It's coming, but the moment is real. And we went to the parking lot, and I asked my mother 2 questions. First question was, are you ready? Are you afraid? Are you afraid? And she looked at me and she said, Kute, I'm not afraid. And my mother's Japanese, little Japanese woman, fully meant this. She said, I'm not afraid because I know I'm not this body, that this body will expire, will die, but what I am will not. And I'll be with you, guiding you from the other side. And I felt such a, like such a comfort in that knowing. And then I asked her, Mom, is there anything I can do for you to make your final days easier? What can I do for you? What do you need? And here's what she said. She said, there's nothing I want and there's nothing I need. All I want and all I need is what God wants for my life. She had complete peace. And in that moment, I understood something, why for the entire year of her passing, she was at peace, in equanimity. This emotional woman didn't cry, didn't feel angry, didn't complain, but truly, not as a bypass, authentically at peace. Because I realized in that moment, she wasn't attached to dying. She wasn't attached to living. She was showing me, she was embodied and living surrender. And I think that surrender really moved me in such a profound way, even in the face of death, by my mother, who was up until that moment my mother, but in that moment I really began to bow to her as like, wow, she's an enlightened being I didn't even know, and I think that was a gift of surrender, another gift of surrender for me in my life.
Yeah. So that's an amazing story. My so my mom's mom and my dad both died a week ago. And my wife and I have been having some challenging stuff going on in our life anyway. And then that happened and it wasn't expected. And so it's been a really brutal week. And so I've been taking care of her and trying to take care of me and trying to take care of everything else at the same time. And I didn't want to do anything today. It's ironic. It's my birthday too today.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. So, so, I didn't want to do anything today. I've been down. I've got this big class that starts on Friday. I haven't done much for it because I've been so depressed lately, and which is not me. I'm usually,
Yeah.
the mesmerizing, fired up guy, and I just kind of
Mm.
lost my drive. And so, I was going to cancel this interview, and I just wasn't going to do anything. But I just kept having that feeling that I needed to show up for it. Yeah, and I, like you, have over many, many years honed in my ability to trust that voice, trust that gut instinct, right? And so, so I could be here and hang out with you and have this conversation. And we could have always rescheduled, but that voice was telling me, go hang out, go do it, go do it. And
Nice.
so I surrendered and said, okay, I'm going to show up for it. I'm not going to do anything else, but I'm going to show up for this interview today, and Monica was like, do you have the interview link? And I was like real close to going, we're not going to do it today, but I sent the link. Right. And so, and so now I know why, because, the stories and what you've shared and who you are with your vulnerability and your honesty, that speaks volumes. And so, but then you sharing the story of your mom helps me understand, why we needed to be here today. And so I couldn't have planned that. We don't really know each other.
Yeah.
And yet you tell a story that, is inspiring for you. And it helps me too, to know that I knew these people and they were enlightened beings, and they're in peace now. They're not suffering, and they're watching over us. And even, even in passing on, they're still working magic in our lives. And there's no way that we could have done that. There's no way we could have orchestrated that. In fact, Kute, if we would look, if God said, here's what we're going to do to get you here, hell no.
Exactly.
No, I ain't doing that. Right. And so that's why we don't know the plan.
Yeah.
Why we have to, flow through life instead of trying to control and come from fear. We've got to just have faith that it's going to be okay. And you're going to get through it. And we're like cats, life's going to throw you in the air, but we are going to land on our feet.
I like that.
Yeah.
So for me, if I can say something to what you said, for me, what really, and you probably know this already, but maybe for those listening who have been through a loss, who have been through heartbreak, who have been through facing the death of a loved one or a parent, for me, what really, and I think this also is a portal into real surrender, where you can truly open your arms to life. I think real surrender doesn't happen without the acknowledgement of the grieving. And many times we stay stuck in acceptance, but not surrender. And surrender is that open-hearted participation, like, okay, life, I'm open to it. Oh, and then the availability to the new phase, the next phase. And it could be because surrender is a death of a person, death of an identity, death of a phase of our life, death of who we thought we were going to be and our goals and dreams at age 20, and for me, when my mother passed away, I really allowed myself to grieve. I mean, I had to do life and what have you, but there were moments where I just gave myself, I call them grief sessions in the evenings, where I would just cry. And it wasn't just tears of like wallowing. It was just acknowledging. It was in acknowledging the grieving. It was acknowledging the depth of how much I loved her, and through the grieving, just when tears came, I let them come. When emotions, feelings, I just let them be present and let them move through my body. And I remember these feelings of grief happening in waves and stages. And when I would just feel the grief, and it was as though my heart would break. Literally, it would just shatter like boom. And then I would just be feeling the grief and the weeping and the tears and the grief, and I miss my mom and the grief and the grief and the grief. And then just when you think it's going to break and never come back, then it was like finding a new expansive dimension of my heart. And then there would be another wave of grief. And then when I would feel that for however long that lasted, then the shape of my heart would break. But also in the shape of my heart breaking, my heart's capacity to hold more love also expanded. And so for me, what really helped was just allowing that process of the grieving and feeling and moving through and healing and letting go. And yeah, it took me on a journey. I think the degree to which we deny the grieving is the degree to which we deny the loving. And the more we acknowledge the grieving is the more we open to that, to the love that's available, and through that, I truly realized that the heart cannot be broken. Through the breaking of my heart over and over and over and over again, through the grieving and the loss of my mother, I found a deeper strength that came from being broken open.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard a lot of stuff that we've talked about before, but I've never heard that.
Yeah.
So good for you.
Yeah.
That's a deep insight. And anybody that's hearing this right now is lucky, because this is a deep, profound insight. I love that. It helps so much. Now there's 6 stages of grief because you added one with surrender at the end of it.
Surrender.
After acceptance. I've not heard that before, and that's great, because acceptance is just like okay. But surrender is an embracing of okay. And I love the idea that your heart gets broken open.
Yeah.
Because I'm also, even though I'm really grieving hard right now and feeling all these emotions, it's horrible. I feel like I just keep getting kicked. But it's also going to rip open a whole new level of me being able to feel my emotions and connect. I've just because of all this crap that I've been through growing up, and I never realized it that much, but I built layers around me, and so that I wouldn't get too emotional about things. And then being someone who, as a coach, dealt with post-traumatic stress and the horrors that people go through and all the traumas and hearing all the nightmares and everything, I built another layer of kind of dissociation, a little bit of protection, so I can hear the worst stories and still have the capacity to then move in there and heal, right? But I didn't realize how much it had caused me to disconnect emotionally. And now I've been feeling all of that emotion. And after hearing what you just said, it's reframed it for me. I'm hoping that, well, I'm not going to hope. I know that this is going to turn a corner for me, because I know it's coming now. It's not just going to be more grief and then feeling peaceful and hustling until the next grief. It's going to be take that love and that joy that has given me the most amount of happiness in life. And now it's going to just kind of break it wide open even more, like the Grinch with the heart, right? Yeah. but so that grief is making that heart grow bigger and bigger, which extends the capacity to love. That's freaking huge. I love that. That is really good. I'm going to promote your book now just for that.
Thank you.
I mean, damn, that's good. That's really good. Really good. Wow. Awesome. That's one of the most powerful things I've ever heard. And I've interviewed, the most brilliant people on the planet. And apparently I'm doing that again right now. Good for you, brother. Good for you.
Thanks, bro.
Wow, that's awesome. So, all right. Wow, that was awesome. So I hope everybody else, got something out of this interview today. I don't care if you did or not, because I did. I got a lot out of this, but I'm sure everybody else did too. So, Newt, where can people find your book and also this class that's coming up?
Yeah, the Magic of Surrender book comes out on May the 3rd. So depending on when you listen to this, but May the 3rd. On paperback, that is. So get the book on paperback on Amazon. Go to Amazon, The Magic of Surrender, Kute Blackson, you'll find it. Once you order the book, for those that get the book, on May the 7th, I'm doing a very special live seminar. It's called Reinvent Live. It's all about how to reinvent yourself and let go of the old version of yourself and connect to your true authentic power and share your gifts with the world. You get to attend that as a gift for pre-ordering the book. And you can go to www, my name, Kute Blackson, Blackson, KuteBlackson.com /reinvent seminar, KuteBlackson.com /reinvent seminar. You can go there, just enter your name, your email, and then your receipt info from your paperback. Then you get access to a bunch of free gifts plus the book. My main website, Kute Blackson, my name again, Kute Blackson.com, and Instagram, Kute Blackson, Facebook, Kute Blackson.
Everywhere. Kute, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed it. It really helped a lot. And again, it just proves, everything that we've been talking about: surrendering, trust, keeping your heart open, going with the flow. I've always said your biggest breakthroughs are hidden in the places you don't want to go, and so if you flow there intentionally, then, it will open doors for you that you wouldn't have been able to open otherwise. And so this was just really great. I really enjoyed our conversation today. I'll have all the links for all your stuff in the show notes. And thanks so much for being a mesmerizing guest and a gift for me personally today.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Go get his stuff. He's awesome.